Growing up, I eventually stumbled upon a strategy game called Tiberian Sun. It was part of the well-known Command & Conquer franchise by Westwood Studios. After starting a new game and loading up the first campaign mission, it only took an exciting introduction and about 60 seconds in-game to hook me into something that would inspire and motivate me for years to come. And I loved every second of it. Until I noticed the red guys were way cooler. As a video game, Tiberian Sun finds itself in somewhat of a unique position. It's a real-time strategy game that was part of the initial round of strategy titles when video game technology and design was breaking all sorts of barriers and making magic happen on computer screens around the world. And with myself having already spent time playing previous CNC titles, Tiberian Sun was a very exciting discovery.
Dead and back, Commander. Dead and back.
It was a promising time for video games, and although the game had its share of issues, the combined gameplay and cinematic presentation did its best to hit the ground running. I was instantly attracted to the 3D-like voxel aesthetic and how the various game elements felt and moved around. But what kept me playing for decades after the first encounter with the game was the unique atmosphere of the story. The fictional setting everything takes place in, and you, the player, as the commander of the forces you are assigned control of, have the opportunity to explore and fight in, depending on which side's visual style, philosophy, and metaphorical animal you like the most.
By the way, missile launch detected.
The story takes place during what is known as the Second Tiberian War, and primarily features two sides of a larger and more complex global conflict.
What? The civilians are shooting at us! Some of the shiners! Retreat to the factory!
In a time when the future of humanity is very uncertain.
Right away!
God damn it. Makes no sense.
As the planet we find ourselves on steadily declines into an unforgettable apocalyptic environment. Due to the effects of Tiberium, a highly dangerous crystalline material acting as the game's main resource, Earth no longer feels like its real-world counterpart, and features a lot of devastated and desert-like landscapes. Much of the surviving flora and fauna has evolved and mutated in strange ways, and the lively cities humanity once knew have become an increasingly rare sight. But hey, in return we got huge mechanized walker death cannons, undead cybernetic soldiers that probably won't eventually turn on us, and a really cool important ball guy to blindly follow.
One vision, one purpose.
Which always seems like a good way to start the day.
Idiot.
You amuse me.
With continued interest in the increasingly toxic, while also incredibly valuable Tiberian crystals and their many effects on the world, this harsh reality and the unforgiving environments of Tiberian Sun gave rise to several factions we get to experience in action over the course of the Second Tiberian War. These organized forces being the Global Defense Initiative, GDI, as a united global peacekeeping force, and the Brotherhood of Nod, as a fanatical movement centered around their mysterious leader Cain. And while the conflict between GDI and Nod takes center stage in the game's story, other notable factions include heavily Tiberium-affected militia groups known as the Forgotten, a deadly force of nightmarish cyborgs led by a deceptive AI, and, although indirectly, a certain amount of unknown alien influence.
Stay alert, people.
All of them combined makes for a very interesting mix of events as the player experiences each side's unique take on influencing the world they find themselves in. As varied as each of their motivations and backgrounds, the same logic applies to the types of military units each faction utilizes to achieve their goals. While one might favor increased durability with an emphasis on defensive strategies, another uses speed and versatility to great effect in very innovative ways. Each side plays very differently, and the asymmetry of their capabilities, along with their signature gameplay style, is what makes the experience of commanding your forces within the game's many different terrain configurations and environments a very memorable experience. Not to mention the feeling of being part of a much larger chain of events due to the unfolding live-action cutscenes featured after any given mission within the game's campaigns. While the full-motion video acting can at times be a bit strange,
Shut up, you son of a
it becomes clear that the style of how Tiberian Sun's story is told features a lot of over-the-top expression, often coming from certain characters more than others.
Yes, sir. Hang on, sir. There's movement here.
As this world stands as a very depressing version of what Earth once was, an unrealistic or overly exaggerated scene from time to time can be taken either as an occasional counterbalance, in order not to dive too deep into too dark of a scenario for the video game's purposes. Well, sort of.
In the name of Cain!
Or just part of the fun that comes with building fictional stories, along with some realities of having to create and act out such things during production in the real world. This end result is an iconic style which the game doesn't seem to suffer much from, but rather embraces it as part of its desired presentation. And although that sometimes feels very strange considering the very serious nature of the game's setting and events, it's something I'm sure many enthusiastic players and fans of the game wouldn't want any other way. The game's soundtrack, however, kicks you straight into the world and doesn't let you look back. The music that accompanies you on any given mission really helps anchor you in this world, full of wonder, danger, and excitement. The songs you hear keep you guessing and complement the action perfectly, with an exploration and caution-oriented industrial audio theme. Listening to the soundtrack, you often feel as if the world is working against you. But despite all odds, you have to find the drive to push on. Other times, you just feel powerful and unstoppable. It's kind of a mix of everything, and it fits the intended gameplay and atmosphere amazingly well. Now, Tiberian Sun is far from being a perfect game, and likely won't have the same emotional impact on everyone the way it fortunately had on myself. Given the nature of video game development and the many things that the development team at Westwood Studios had to deal with during production back in the 90s, this RTS classic that I fell in love with so long ago will likely only appeal to a certain type of player.
The game's afoot. Let's kick some ass.
One in search of something very different, or something already intimately familiar.
I'm not God, but I'm a close second.
Probably depending on your level of experience with the Command & Conquer franchise, and RTS games in general.
I want peace. We need you, Jake. We see what GDI doesn't.
While the deeper mechanisms and meaning behind the events featured in Tiberian Sun, along with the fates of its characters, is best left to the player to discover on their own, the thing that captivated me the most during my continued time with the game was the combination of the many possibilities I saw in the game's fictional world, its many strange environments, and the diverse factions that make it all really stand out from anything else I've seen shown in similar creative works. I feel that no matter what approach I take to present this wonderful game's strong points and what it can do for you in terms of entertainment, inspiration, or as a learning experience, nothing can transfer over the same kind of increased awareness and life-changing thoughts that kept me vividly motivated for so many years. As something along those lines persists as very context-dependent and highly situational, the only thing I can really do is showcase the game in an interesting enough way for you to be able to decide if it's something you'd like to invest more time and energy.
Low power. Construction complete.
And energy in experiencing for yourself. In my eyes, Tiberian Sun definitely has a lot to offer as a game, and the story itself stands as one of the more detailed and unexpected chain of events within Command & Conquer's Tiberium universe. Life has a way of changing things around every now and then, and throughout all this ongoing change, we often look towards the things that we think define us. We consider the experiences we've had and how they've changed the course of our lives, be it playing a video game or doing something else with our valuable time. Whether or not a game really is as special and meaningful as we consider it to be is irrelevant. The specific experience doesn't matter as much as the impact it had on our own development, and in my case, Tiberian Sun contributed a lot of inspiration and creative drive to what I could only describe as a sense of living with purpose. And for that, I will always be grateful.
Battle controls established. Use them to your advantage.